Talvisodassa jouduimme taistelemaan yksin suurta ylivoimaista vihollista vastaan. Myötätuntoa saimme joka puolelta maailmaa, mutta muuta apua ei juuri tullut. Tukenamme oli kansamme suuri yksimielisyys. Koskaan ei Suomen kansa ole varmasti ollut niin yksimielinen kuin se oli talvisodan syttyessä. Ja toisaalta myöskin puolustustahto oli korkealla. Ja näin kotirintaman tuki oli suurena tukena rintamalle lähtevillä miehillä. Tapahtui suuri ihme. Armeijamme saavutti torjuntavoiton ja Suomi säilyi itsenäisenä.
On the 30th of November, 1939, the Soviet Union set off the Winter War with a massive attack on all fronts. Moreover, several Finnish cities were bombed. And on the 30th of November 1939, Marshal Mannerheim was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Finnish Defence Forces, in which capacity he acted throughout all three wars. The strength of the Finnish army at the start of the Winter War was 275,000 troops. The Soviet Union had 4 times that number. If the amount of equipment is also factored into the equation, it can be said that the Soviet Union had nearly 10-fold battlefield superiority. Even if Finland was lacking in arms, rifles could at least be issued to all frontline soldiers. Still, the rifles, as well as the entire weaponry, were quite obsolete. The lack of weaponry was particularly evident in anti-tank guns, especially as Finland was facing a huge mechanized army. Ingenuity and courage were called for. The troops used Molotov cocktails, satchel charges laced around stick grenades, and, as the weapon of last resort, even birch logs to stop the onslaught of tanks. Another indicator of the poor level of preparedness was the fact that many troops had to go into battle in their civilian clothes. The soldiers' only military designators were the army cockades pinned on their hats, as well as military identification tags worn on chains around their necks, from which fallen soldiers could be identified.
Koulutuskeskuksessa niin se oli aika ankeata aikaa. Varusteet olivat huonot. Ensin alkuun ei saatu mitään muuta kuin lakkiin kokardi, siviililakkiin kokardi ja nahkavyö. Vähitellen sitten saatiin jonkinlaista asetakkia ja housua, että oltiin vähän sotilaan näköisiä.
Nonetheless, the Finnish soldiers had certain strengths compared to their Soviet counterparts. First of all, they had received excellent military training in the army and in the civil guard. They were also thoroughly versed in winter warfare and had an unyielding will to defend Finland's independence. In addition, they had the strong support of the home front and the rest of the world. This is how the terms Winter War morale and Winter War miracle came into existence. The Finnish people fought shoulder to shoulder for their very existence, and the rest of the world watched in awe. In contrast, many of the Soviet troops had been brought to the Eastern Front from the Ukraine and southern Russia. These troops were unfamiliar with and ill-equipped for the extreme cold and the wilderness. They also lacked the motivation to fight. Some of them hardly even knew where they were fighting and what for. A significant factor weakening the capabilities of the Soviet military leadership was the fact that Stalin had executed his military commanders in droves in 1937 and 1938. This being the case, after their initial retreat, Finns managed to encircle Soviet troops and divide them into pockets called mottis, and subsequently defeated them on the long eastern front. On the Karelian Isthmus, however, the army had to retreat in front of such superior numbers of troops, which soon caused the situation at the Bay of Viipuri to become critical. The Winter War ended with the signing of the Moscow Peace Treaty on the 13th of March 1940. A key contributing factor was that the Western powers, England and France, had offered Finland military aid, nearly 60,000 troops. Stalin wanted to avoid at all costs the situation in which he would be fighting against the Western powers. In fact, this would have been the case for, as early as December 1939, Hitler had initiated the planning of invading Norway. On the 20th of February 1940, General von Falkenhorst had begun to draw up detailed invasion plans against Denmark and Norway. Hitler had approved the final plan on the 28th of February 1940. The plan was to be immediately carried out should the Western powers begin to implement their own plans. However, the Western powers' plan entailed permission from Sweden and Norway to transit Western troops through their territory, and no such permission had been granted. Taking the critical situation on the Bay of Viipuri into consideration, it can be said that Finland's decision to sign the peace treaty was the correct one. At that stage in World War II, it was still difficult to believe in Germany's promises to regain territories lost with interest. When the terms of peace became public, Finnish flags flew at half-mast. Finnish casualties included 24,300 dead and 43,600 wounded soldiers, whereas Soviet casualties were approximately 130,000 dead and 260,000 wounded. Finland was forced to give up plenty of territory.